My guest is Odile Renaud-Basso, the president of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. The bank invests in Eastern Europe, Asia and North Africa, and its shareholders include the EU, the US and China. We talk about the bank's role in the future of Ukraine and Gaza, and about how it's keeping resilient amid global economic instability. Odile Renaud-Basso, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
So your institution, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, was established in the 1990s, primarily to invest in post-Soviet economies after the Cold War. We now have an active war in the east of Europe, in Ukraine. Tell us why your bank is investing so heavily in Ukraine while the war is still raging, and how do you hope to play a part in its eventual reconstruction?
So, indeed, we are very active in Ukraine, and we have always invested in Ukraine since the bank was created. Basically, developing Ukraine, developing the private sector in Ukraine and in the region is part of the core of our mandate. When the war started, we decided to, with the support of our shareholders, to step up our level of investment. So we used to invest something like 1 billion a year. Now we invest, and last year, more than 2.8 billion in the country, because we want to support the real economy. I think the country is at war, so they have received and they need military support. They also need budget support to keep the state, the government functioning, being able to pay civil servants, the pension and so forth. But what they also need is support for the real economy, which is what we are doing. It means, for example, supporting the infrastructure. There have been, since the beginning of the war, and it's even increasing now, some attacks from Russia on key infrastructure, such as energy infrastructure, gas production, transport, railway system. And we've been investing to repair very quickly, as quickly as possible, this infrastructure, develop a more decentralized energy system, repair roads, develop railway, because this is key for the economy to continue to function. So all this is very important to keep the economy going. It generates tax revenues, it creates jobs, and so this is a way to help Ukraine sustaining the war.
On that question of the energy infrastructure you mentioned, it is being pounded by Russian drone and missile attacks, yet you continue to invest. Ukraine is now facing its fourth winter since the war broke out. Is that infrastructure ready for another winter, in your opinion?
I think the infrastructure, it cannot never be completely protected. So Ukraine has been extremely effective in repairing very quickly key infrastructure in the network, building shelters to protect some of the infrastructure so that they cannot be targeted. They are protected against target. And also building a more decentralized system where it's not a big power plant, but you have more decentralized energy generation, which is a way to avoid concentrating the risk. On the other hand, Russia is continuing to target. A few days ago, there have been the largest attack on gas infrastructure, and this creates new challenge. So that's why we need to be, as an institution, as a bank, and with the countries that support Ukraine, need to be very agile in defining the response and providing support depending on the priorities. And for example, now we've been working in the last few months and still now with Naftogaz, which is a gas company, in order to ensure that Ukraine has sufficient gas storage to cover for the winter.
So you believe that for this winter, the country
there is a new challenge. The country was very well prepared a few days ago. The new attack creates new challenge. So it's important to continue to strengthen and to be ready.
You also support Ukraine on its reform agenda as it aspires to join the European Union. Now, recently, the Kyiv government tried to push through a law which would have undermined the independence of two anti-corruption bodies. Given these developments, are you still confident that Ukraine is on the right path to joining the European Union?
So I'm confident because, first of all, it's a clear priority for the government, but also for Ukrainian people. And I think what was very striking is what happened in July, is that the government and the parliament took a decision, but then there were a very strong reaction from the people, from civil society, which really, with the young people, saying, I mean, reacting against the decision and together with international partners, convincing government that it's better to review the decision and to amend it and to reinstate the power of this anti-corruption body. So I think this makes me very confident, because having the civil society so involved and so reactive to what's going on is a guarantee of ensuring that the path is pursued. Of course, it's not a linear path. You can have some progress, some backtracking, but the direction is very clear. The commitment and the desire for the whole society to join the EU, I think, is so strong that it's a key driver. And we see that, for example, we work a lot with state-owned enterprise, where we made a lot of effort and progress in the governance of the company, so as to ensure that you have international expert, independent governing bodies that manage the company in the interest of the company and its activity. And we are making also good progress there. Sometimes we are not happy with decision, but we always find a solution and find a way to progress.
In the event of a ceasefire and perhaps even a lasting peace in Ukraine, how do you see the role of the bank evolving in that scenario? And also, can you foresee any situation where you would return to invest in Russia and Belarus?
So in the case of, hopefully we will come soon to reconstruction and with a ceasefire and hopefully a real peace agreement, because I think for real reconstruction, having a clear visibility, uncertainty that the war will not start again is important. If you still have, you remember that Ukraine was in a war since 2014, and this is not very conducive for investment and development. It was, so hopefully this will be the situation. Then we will step up our investment, and I think our plan is to invest at least 3 billion euros per year, and we will have, there will be a lot of different challenges, and we already put in place, with the support of the EU and in connection with the IB, and a project preparation facility, so that it's up and running and can be very quick when the conditions are better. But it's already helpful already now.
And on Russia?
I don't see, for the time being, we have suspended, any investment and financial relationship with Russia and Belarus. And I don't see the current circumstances allowing us to start again.
I'd like to turn to Gaza. Now, as we speak, there is a first phase of a ceasefire that has been agreed and seems to be in effect. We know that still the humanitarian situation on the ground is devastating. Can you foresee a big role for the EBRD in Gaza's eventual reconstruction?
So first of all, the recent news is positive. I think it's encouraging, and having a ceasefire will be a very important step. We've been investing in the West Bank in the last few years, and they're also supporting the private sector mostly, and we accelerated our investment also in the West Bank. In the last 2 years, we invested 200 million, and the double of what we've done in the 5 years before. And investing in the banks, which are really key to keep the economy going, to give access to funding for SMEs, supporting some manufacturing plants in the West Bank. Of course, the needs for reconstruction in Gaza will be huge, and EBRD stands ready. We have a private sector focus, so I think our role would be more to try to bring, when times come and when circumstances allow, to bring private sector or to support financing the private sector in Gaza. But I think that the starting point will be really humanitarian and basic infrastructure reconstruction, but we will be ready when it's possible.
If that basic reconstruction does proceed, do you foresee that then the bank could step in and play a role quite soon?
I think, yes, we could help, bring, as I was saying, also, if possible, bringing private investors to develop infrastructure, to rebuild hospitals, to address the needs. So, but it really very much depends. Today it looks like still quite far away, but of course it will really depend on the political conditions, and there will be a lot of, I think, all the international community will need to be mobilized for this reconstruction.
Finally, I'd like to ask you about how President Trump particularly is embracing quite protectionist policies, slashing development aid. He's also made his disdain for multilateralism quite clear. Is this an existential threat for the EBRD?
No, I think that the role of the EBRD, the role of multilateral institutions like EBRD is even more important because we have, with the support of our shareholders, including the US, are very much focusing on how we can develop private sector, market economies, bring foreign investment in the countries in which we work, ensure that investment have a favorable environment, that we create jobs for people, and that we have a positive impact on the growth of the country, but also the global growth. And I think this agenda, which is very much focusing on the private sector, good governance, and so forth, is very important in countries in which we operate. It also helps them building up resilience in a context where there are much more trade tensions, geopolitical tensions. Building resilience and building your, capacity of the economy to generate and diversify your supply chain and so forth is very important for a country to have sustained growth. And I think this is an agenda which is even more important than before. So I think that we have not under threat. On the contrary, our role is even more important.
Odile Renaud-Basso, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.